Hello and welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to SGU and another Hawkeye chat. I'm sad this show is going to be done in 2 weeks. I'm enjoying Hawkeye and Hawkeye chats. I am Eric. This is Kim. And we're going to go into full spoilers if you haven't seen episode 4 of Hawkeye. So this is your warning. We're about to talk about a bunch of things, starting with a big reveal at the end. So that's your last warning on that. Spoiler zone. 3, 2, 1. Full spoiler zone for Hawkeye episode 4. Kim, who I know is sounding a little like Kathleen Turner today, their voice. What did you think of episode 4 of Hawkeye?
Well, again, another great episode. A bit of a gear shift in this one, where we kind of dig a little bit deeper into Clint's psyche and his past, and the bond between Kate and Clint strengthens some more. And I think that the menace and the intrigue really ramps up in this episode as we get the introduction that you referenced of this new character, which we'll talk about. You know, we're still wondering about who the big boss is because we didn't get any more on him this episode. But we got some more reveals. Jack's involvement was confirmed in some way in what's going on. So it's no longer kind of this separate strand, the whole murder mystery thing. And mysteries surrounding Laura are teased. And also Eleanor is fast becoming more entrenched in whatever's going on. So the action was dialed down, and it's less playful now, I think, but there was still room for humor, and I very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, same here. I mean, yeah, it was, less adrenaline than last week, but another great episode. A really great character episode, because this completely solidified Clint and Kate's bond, I felt. This was the episode where, not that we already didn't see that he respected her and had come to think she really is one of the world's greatest archers, but here they became like legitimately like close, even if he doesn't want to call her a friend. They are. By the way, I loved when she walked up to the Larpers and said, "I'm like Hawkeye's partner / best friend." I really appreciated that about the episode beyond anything else. But like you said, there were a lot of other little kernels coming here as we go into the final 2 episodes, so things have to start to come together. But let's first and foremost, let's talk about that reveal at the end, because of course, what started trending immediately, the hashtag on Twitter, Yelena. We got her here. We pretty much knew. In fact, even the head writer pretty much admitted it about a week ago. I saw an interview, but there she was in a really fun way, I thought. What did you think of how we were waiting for her, but seeing Yelena come in the way she did?
Yeah, it was fun. And of course they did the whole she's coming in disguise with these night vision goggles, and then there was a reveal. And I'm terrible at getting twists in things and things like that, and I'm sitting there watching it thinking, now who's that? So it really worked for me as an idiot. And we talked last week, I think, about at what point she wowould come in if she were to come in, and I don't think any of us expected her to come in at this point. I think we felt maybe she'd come in a maybe a post-credit scene at the end, the final episode. So this is cool. Like, I can't wait to see how she fits into the story.
Yeah, I really loved it. While I did figure it was her once they actually cut to her on the roof with the mask, what I loved was the confusion in the moment of Maya attacking Kate, and that confusion of Kate, and saying this is Maya's place, and Clint saying Maya's here, and then realizing different people were attacking them and being like, oh, that's who's attacking Clint. I am a sucker for a multifaceted fight where a bunch of different people who are different cross purposes are fighting. So I was all about this 4-person fight where Clint and Kate are a team, but everyone else is a wild card, because Maya's in it for herself, Yelena's in it for herself, and I love when they're like kind of switching up who they're fighting, who they're attacking. Yelena attacks Clint, but she also punches Maya, and vice versa. I was very all about it, because people were theorizing, is Yelena like working with the tracksuit mafia? Clearly that is a no. So it is a really fun thing to throw her in here, because as we talked about, different people are Clint's enemies for different reasons. And now they've all kind of come at him at once, but they're not on the same page. It's just all coming together for our entertainment in a very convoluted Christmas setting there. Now, what did you think? It was interesting. I thought he clocks very quickly, of course, this is a Black Widow, but we pretty much gather, unless he's hiding more from Kate, and I don't think he is at this point, he doesn't know who Yelena is specifically. He's not like, oh my gosh, that's Yelena, and she must be after me for something involving Natasha. He just is like, oh no, it's a Black Widow. They're really dangerous. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it did seem that way, but I did wonder if maybe he knew more than he was letting on. The way he kind of instantly knew what she was about. But well, that remains to be seen, right? But I did want to give a mention to before we move on, the zip line bit where when I was when we were talking about the fight, I just thought, oh God, when I was watching that, and she stops, and I'm sitting there edging her on myself, you know. And thank heaven for Yelena pulling on the wire.
That was what I loved about it, because we've seen that gag before, the stopping in the middle, but A, it always works because I love this, and B, the way she got out of it was really funny, which is Yelena pulls down, using it as leverage to fight Clint, but inadvertently helps Kate at the same time.
Yeah,
so I thought that was great. And then, of course, Maya swinging in a minute later, entering the fray as well. Yeah, I guess right now my instinct is he probably doesn't know who Yelena is, just because this episode, like, you know, a lot of cards were being laid on the table. Now, of course, Clint did not say, here's all my secrets, and we'll talk about the Rolex in a minute, of course. But just the fact that it was, bouncing for a second to something we'll talk about more later, but it's like, the fact that he owned up very quickly when she figured out he was Ronin, is like, yeah, it was me. So I don't think at this point, if he knew who Yelena was, that he would keep it a secret from her, but maybe he would. He might have other reasons to, but we'll find out. But of course, she pointedly didn't even speak, which I thought was really fun. Like, you know, we're waiting for her to have, you know, some big conversations with Clint, but she didn't even speak yet. So it was a really kind of cool way to just tease her. I mean, let's face it, Florence Pugh didn't have to do a lot, because I'm guessing a stunt double did all the stuff in the mask.
Yeah, and
we don't know that.
We don't know that.
There were a couple of cool homages to Nat, weren't there? When well, with her hair for a start, it was braided like Nat's hair, and she did the quite subtly, I felt, her Avengers move on the roof there. Yeah.
And we should mention in that scene, there was a couple interesting beats. One, of course, was when Kate is knocked off the roof by Yelena, and clearly Clint is flashing back to Natasha at that moment. I really liked some musical stuff they did there, which is they played a little bit of the Vormir music from Avengers Infinity War and Endgame at that moment, for Clint having this parallel. Like, so they played the music from that scene, and then they played some music from the Black Widow movie when Yelena's face is revealed. So I kind of, I do love those sort of motifs they can do, both visually and musically, to tie into things we see in the past. Also, I thought it was smart to, earlier in the episode, have Clint like literally have like nightmares that involve seeing Nat die again. So we didn't need to flash back at that moment. We get it, but they made sure to remind us just in case, you know?
Yeah, and I think she says, Kate, pull me up, and does Nat say, let me go?
Oh yeah, she does. Yeah. And of course, in this case, he purposely lets Kate go, but he's saving her. He's trying to get her out of danger at that moment, into the safety of the Christmas lights, holding her. Let's talk about that watch, because I actually think we forgot to talk about it when we did our first video, because it was a very quick thing in the premiere, but notable. Like this, what the hell is this Rolex that we've never heard about in the Avengers movies? We know what the Ronin costume is, but there's this other thing the Tracksuit Mafia grabbed that is now very significant, and very pointedly, it's Laura Barton who brings it up in the first place in this episode. And Clint mentions to Kate that it is someone who kind of got out of the game and who life would be in danger, if not over, if it was revealed what was going on here. What do you think is going on with the Rolex here?
Well, it's interesting because you know, it did seem in the first episode like this was a really key thing, and then it's not mentioned for the next couple of episodes, and I kind of forgot about it by the time this episode rolled around. So, you know, I guess that's part of the planning. And I it's obviously very tied to Laura. It makes us think that there's more to her. Obviously, we see her speak German fluently in the film, which is something we didn't know about her. It feels like this is a clue to her deeper identity, her past identity. I know that when Clint talks about the watch's significance and link to someone that he knows, someone that he used to work with, and he's not specific about gender, perhaps it could link to Laura, and maybe they worked together and she's been out of the game for a while.
Yeah, that's, I think, the best bet. And what I hope it is, because while it's easy, you know, we certainly love to speculate about, like, it's connected to this Marvel character we've never met yet that's coming later, or some deep cut from the past. It makes the most sense if it's simply Laura. And I think that works really well, because Laura, even from Age of Ultron, but certainly this show is cemented that she's, like, not just supportive of Clint, but kind of encouraging of, even though he's always trying to retire, when he is out avenging, she's very supportive of it. They've done a good job of avoiding, like, the nagging wife trope. And on a lot of these TV shows in general have a really terrible cliche of, like, the wife who is like, stop doing the cool thing that we're watching the show for, that makes people, like, hate, like, wife characters when they shouldn't. She's not that at all. But this would even more fuel, like, because he even goes to her to, like, help me find out about Sloan Limited, that she's someone who is, like, really kind of assisting him. So her being a SHIELD agent who retired when they decided to have a family together, plus how would he even have met her in the first place? I think that makes a lot of sense, and I just think works really well. So I hope it is exactly what we're predicting in those next couple episodes.
Yeah. And now she's the guy in the chair.
Right. She is the guy in the chair. Yeah. She's doing a great job of it too, Laura. And by the way, we should mention, of course, in the comic books, his, like, wife and SHIELD agent wife was Bobby Morse, Mockingbird. This is where you get into the complications of the TV shows that Marvel Studios didn't make, but Marvel did, because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., of course, had Bobby Morse as a character. I don't think they're going to say, and my real name is Bobby Morse. They could say Mockingbird was a code name, but I don't think they're going to change her identity to Bobby. I think we're going to see that little bit of amalgamation we see often, though, here, and just say she was a SHIELD agent and she could probably fight a little bit that we haven't seen yet. Let's talk about the very beginning of the episode, Jack and Eleanor. I will say it cemented to me that it was kind of a lame way to end last week's episode on this threat that wasn't a threat, because as we all predicted, it wasn't like Jack's going to attack him. It was like Kate walks up and says, "Oh, he's with me." They just sit down right away.
Oh my God, it's Archer.
Right. We got the sort of confirmation that we thought that, speaking of the comics and source material, it's like Hawkeye doesn't know Jack, even though the swordsman thing from the comics are deeply connected. That's not the case here. But I continue to say one of my only thing that's a gripe as we get towards the last two episodes is I feel like they need to pull the trigger on what's going on with Eleanor, because it's just this looming thing. Yes, Jack is, it turns out on paper, is the Tracksuit Mafia's boss. But what do you think? I think it's still going to be Eleanor either working hand in hand with Jack or just doing it all, and Jack doesn't even know that he's kind of being used as this front. What do you think is going on there?
Yeah, that's my feeling. The second thing you said, it feels like she is behind it. It's her computer, it's her, passwords. It's it feels like she has been using him to hide behind. He's potentially completely oblivious.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one or the other, but I do kind of hope they get this episode, at least that reveal. We now can connect all our stories, because the Eleanor and Jack thing had kind of been lingering out there. Well, now they're directly tied to the Tracksuit Mafia one way or the other. So that's good. But I do kind of think like we've talked about, you don't hire Vera Farmiga just to play the mom. So we're kind of waiting on this big reveal. Ryan, by the way, in the chat mentions when I was talking about the wife thing, the Skylar White principle, Skylar and Rita on Dexter. I was the other one I was thinking of, Ryan, as far as like, she's so annoying because she's trying to stop the person from doing the thing that the show's about.
Yeah, I think in both those cases, even the writers of the show, like in the show, were like, "Oh yeah, we messed up on that." Like,
right.
they course corrected hard on Breaking Bad, but yeah,
They sure did. Let's get to the sort of the dramatic meat of the story that we talked about at the beginning, though, a lot, which is the center of this episode is just this long sequence of Clint and Kate and some very cozy, ugly Christmas sweaters having a big bonding session here that is very adorable. And they're having some adult beverages and bonding, but then it gets pretty serious. What'd you think of this whole sequence?
Oh, it's so lovely. I mean, again, like the attention to detail throughout this series has been wonderful, and you know, the comedic moments. And I loved the juxtaposition of the previous scene where Kate was with her mum and Jack, and they're talking about family, and she clearly is, her mind goes to Clint, and the juxtaposition is of scenes of him strapping frozen strawberry daiquiris to his arms, his sore muscles, and a pina colada across his eyes. And I loved it. And then they end up drinking them when she goes round. And Clint's jumper is awesome. I love that this whole coin thing that he teaches her. Who knew that he could do this? You know, he's a dark horse, and we're learning more about him. But here they really cement their relationship.
Yeah, it's a really like lovely sequence, and yeah, one of my favorites maybe in the MCU as far as like character interaction. We've talked about this before. These TV shows have this great benefit of getting to do stuff like this, of like an extended sequence of two characters hanging out that you just in the movies you rarely would take the time to do because there's too much stuff happening. Yeah, a great sequence that I think very credibly bonds them together in a way that you want the show to do. And I love that as it continues, like, yeah, like like you said, first the coin stuff is really fun, and also showing like some badass stuff we didn't know about Clint. But then also when it gets more serious, when they talk about Nat and kind of get his side of that story, which was really cool. And you know, him kind of opening up about everything with Ronan, because again, this show does have to deal with that. It's a lighter show, but then Clint has this very dark part of his life we're kind of coming off of fairly recently with Endgame. And I really like that was, you know, like I said, I also like that she figured it out and that he didn't try to deny it. It just was like, yeah, they're at a place where they could just talk honestly about it.
I thought a lovely touch was, you know, she brought around a bunch of films for this Christmas movie night that he was supposed to be having with his family. And amongst those films, well, I had a look. There was National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. There was Die Hard. There was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and the Santa Claus. Those were the ones that I could make out. But also, It's a Wonderful Life, which was playing on the TV, and it was a lovely touch that the themes of family and hope in that film mirror what's going on here.
Yeah, that was really good. And like you said, it's like, though there's a stack of DVDs, there's only one movie that is actually footage is featured from it. And It's a Wonderful Life, which there are definitely parallels you could pull out there that make sense for Clint and his story and his family and the absence of his family. Ryan, I'm putting in the chat for us, if you could put a link in the description of this on YouTube. Kim happened to have just written a great article about It's a Wonderful Life and it being the 75th anniversary of that movie. And you talked to two living cast members from that film, which is crazy and amazing. So it was a very serendipitous. We did not know Hawkeye was going to feature that. You should check out Kim's article there. By the way, what was it like talking to those people? Because that's amazing.
Amazing. I think I was probably very gushing during the conversation, but such lovely people. And it was just amazing to hear their memories, which was so vivid. I'm sure they've talked about it a lot over the years, but yeah, very young when they were in the film, but they remember it so vividly.
We all try to be professional. We do interviews, and then once in a while, you're just going to touch because that's what happens. And then I also just want to mention the Larpers came back in this episode. There was a couple fun things I thought about that. I mentioned loving Kate's introduction to them as the partner / best friend of Clint. I realized that they did a clever thing here, which is, you know, again, this show is not a direct adaptation of Matt Fraction's comic book because it can't be, because Clint Barton is in a very different place in his life. But in that comic, Clint owned an apartment building, and all the people in the apartment building were like kind of a recurring group of characters. And I realized, oh, that's where the Larpers are. Down Grills is a name taken from that, but served a very fun purpose here. And then they did it's one of those things where even if you didn't know the name was from the comics, it instantly will make you Google Officer Wendy Conrad. She mentions that her nickname is Bombshell, given to her by her wife. Were you instantly looking that one up, Kim?
Yes. Yeah, straight away. So I learned that in the comics she was an assassin for hire, and she was hired to take down Hawkeye. Now it doesn't look like it's going to go down that avenue here, but who knows? We talked about all his enemies earlier that come in different disguises, and she did disguise herself as a nun once to attack him, so who knows?
Bombshell in the comics, her name is pretty specific. She's a bomb expert. She uses bombs, but she was part of one of my favorite crazy comic book things, which was a supervillain team called the Death Throes, and they were all jugglers. And she was one of them. She juggled little bombs. So I don't know if we're going to get the Death Throes in the MCU, but I do love that sort of deep cut of that, pulling in these names of significance from the comic books. They're not going to be exactly, what they did there, but still a fun touch. A lot going on this episode. Any other sort of final thoughts for you? Anything else jumping out at you?
Well, no, not really. I just, I really want to just praise the humor again. And there are lots of funny one-liners and moments, despite the fact, it's got more serious and into the nitty-gritty now, and kind of working to resolve the serious drama of the story now. And that weird Jack and Eleanor serenade moment, which I didn't know what to make of, but Kate seemed okay with it. So
I guess the one thing that leapt out at me there was Kate did say, "I've never seen you like this," to Eleanor. So basically insinuating she's happier than ever.
Yeah.
As we're waiting for the other shoe to drop, right? Like as we're still waiting for, and I'm an evil supervillain. I'm very happy, and I'm an evil supervillain. So we'll see. And I will say, as we're waiting on the Kingpin thing, they very much solidified here, at least, that whoever Uncle is, the boss is, Clint is very familiar with him. He does call him the big guy, which once again, leans into who we think it is.
That could be anybody. You just don't know.
Could be anyone. That big bald guy.
We know what it means, Brian.
We'll see, but I did think that was interesting little tease here. Let's do a couple little questions here. I want to save your voice as much as possible, Kim, so we won't get too long on this. Madison J says, "I have a feeling this stuff with Eleanor is almost more of a setup for future stuff with her." What do you think about that?
Well, I had a feeling that it'll, if it is revealed that she has been some kind of evil mastermind, perhaps there'll be a redemption arc, but for that to happen, she'll need to die. So no, I don't know if I do believe it's a setup for more.
I guess, Madison, I'll say, if they don't reveal it in the next episode, you might be right. It's like, because again, we got 2 episodes left. We don't know how long they are, but the more we get towards the end, the more, like you mentioned, Kim, like the longer, if Yelena wasn't showing up by next week, she was probably going to be the end of the season. Now there's time, right, to kind of have her deal. But that's the thing, is the more you push things off, like, are we going to get the uncle reveal? I think we are. But if we're going to find out Eleanor is really a bad guy, yeah, that could be more of a near the end of the finale. Let's set up whatever Kate's future with her mother/nemesis is. That is certainly possible. I'll just mention Bruins fan 1144 saying, "Vera Farmiga isn't evil. In fact, she couldn't possibly be more good or sane, and she will have a PowerPoint presentation to prove it." I look forward to that. She has.
Sounds good.
James Bunt asks, "Do you want Kate to join the Bartons for Christmas?"
A short answer, yes.
Who wouldn't? Yeah, and Lucky, of course, goes to. By the way, I will mention, I did like that this episode verbalized Clint said two different times he talked about why he is stuck around New York, and he actually gave two different reasons. But I do think it's like they are both the reasons. It was actually on the conversation with Laura, I believe, where it was brought up that it was like, you know, that he's staying to protect this girl, but then he also does pointedly say that he needs to fix the Ronin suit situation. That it's like that is this lingering guilt. So yeah, he says can't leave until I know she's safe. So I think it is both, and I think that works completely. You know, these are two significant things to him. One out of now caring and love, and the other out of this guilt and feeling terrible about things. Fiona Gilbert asks, any thoughts on Clint drinking from the mug that said Thanos was right?
Do I have any thoughts? I mean, I don't know. I did write an article about why Thanos was right when that film came out. So that please don't think I'm an awful genocidal terrorist. I promise you I'm not. But it's just a fun bit of placement, isn't it? The mug.
Yeah, I think that I know people might overread it. I can see a Twitter contingent being like, Clint would never drink from a mug that says that. I think it's more like a grimly dark thing that, you know, because I don't think he went out and bought that mug, right? That's Kate's aunt's mug. So he just you know, it was convenient, it was clean, and so he drank from it. Brent Drahir says, saw a theory on Twitter that Matt Murdock was snapped, but Fisk wasn't, and he built his empire back up during the blip. Thoughts?
Yeah, that sounds possible. Yeah, I can buy into that.
I think it is possible, but I think it's going to be one of those things, again, assuming we get both these characters back soon, and certainly there's feeling a lot of reasons to be optimistic about that. It doesn't get explicitly said. I think, again, they probably will never explicitly mention the stuff in the Netflix shows, and we'll just can assume what we want. But also, I remember when I interviewed the director of Shang-Chi, we talked about the fact that they cut some stuff that was more explicit about which of the characters in Shang-Chi have been affected by the blip directly or not. And it's a kind of an obstacle for the MCU moving forward, which is because we can ask this like when Kate says to Clint, wow, your whole family was gone in the blip. She could have said, well, for me, my aunt was, or my friend was, but she doesn't, because I think you can't get too bogged down in that. You know, we have all these, it's something that we would ponder ourselves as fans, but I think at a certain point, they're not going to be able to take every single character and be like, here's what happened to them during the blip. It'll come up if it's important to, you know?
Yeah. And I would have thought that Fisk would have been able to rebuild his empire, whether Matt Murdock was around or not. Anyway, he was, a powerful and evil guy.
Right. Yeah, he's got resources and he's smart, so he could do stuff there. Let's see. Maybe we'll end here on Reynard City Update Channel asking what if episode do you think we could get from this series?
Oh,
I have a thought.
You have a thought?
My thought is simply based on the end of this episode. You could easily do the what if Yelena killed Clint? You know, because I don't think she's gonna. I mean, I understand that there's 2 more episodes and she could kill him in the next 2 episodes. I don't think she is. So assuming she does not kill Clint in the next 2 episodes, I think that's a possible one of what we've seen so far, what we predict we'll see. Anything else for you?
Yeah, I've just seen what Ryan's written in the chat, and that's a good one. Different parent dies for Kate.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Because especially
that's me assuming it's going to be more important. Like that part of it is going to come back a lot more in these next 2 episodes. So yeah. I'm assuming we're going to find out when we find out what's going on with the mom. It'll be a lot that'll be able to, we'll kind of know what's going on with that dynamic between the mom and the dad. But yeah.
Right. Oh, I lied. I'll throw in one more question since we're kind of talking about Kate's parents. James Bunn has another question, which is, was Eleanor knowing Clint had children a hint that she was evil?
Yes. Yes, definitely.
Because I do think it's all tied in. Like, she has a moment that is of course going to make us be mad with her, which is when she brings up Nat in kind of a very pointed way about like, well, Nat was well trained and look what happened to her. And you could say, yes, she's trying to keep her daughter safe. And I don't think she's evil to the point that she wants to kill Kate. But I think all these things are these, this menacing undercurrent, this fact that she, she it wasn't pushed so much that she's like, you have children, don't you? But I think it's lingering out there, and her kind of holding that thing about Nat over him. It's all these little elements that she probably knows more than she might know otherwise. And it might be stuff she might use to leverage in the future. What if we're totally wrong, by the way, Kim? And she's like a concerned mom.
We're not wrong. We're not wrong.
That's what I want. I've now flipped over. I'm like, I'm really hoping that like it doesn't even come up, and at the end she's just like, "I'm glad you're safe," and that's it. I'm fingers crossed.
If Kate is going to be a proper superhero, she needs to have no parents.
You're right.
Well, that's true, but an evil parent can serve the same function. So.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, guys. Ponder that for the next week. What's happening with Eleanor? Thanks for hanging out with us as we talk Hawkeye. We'll be back to talk about the next episode next week. But we'll have plenty more content between then and now. So keep sticking around here at Fandom. Farewell. Happy Hawkeye.